Hi, and welcome to 10 Minutes with Toro. I'm Tim Hughes. I'm with Century Equipment in Northeast Ohio, and I want to take, as the video says, 10 minutes with you and just talk to you about this weird time that we're in. I want to thank everybody out there, the superintendents, the pros, the GMs, the players, everybody for still having that hunger in golf. When this all clears, we're going to get back to normal, and it's very clear to me that the golf industry is strong. So what I want to talk to you today about is just the new TriFlex 3360 and 3370 from Toro. What I'm going to do is just kind of break down a few things. Myths versus facts, walk mowers versus greens mowers, and then all of the components. We're going to get into it a little bit more, all the components with this mower itself and what it can do to improve the quality of your golf course. So about 10 years ago, the industry faced a challenge. Budgets were cut, the staff was reduced. We had to figure out ways to maintain the turf with a reduced staff and reduced money. One of the first things you could do is you could reduce the walking greens mowers. But the debate has always been, can you get the same quality of cut with a riding greens mower that you can with the walker? So Toro worked on, even before that, before 10 years ago, and worked on the concept of the TriFlex mower. So what we came up with was the GR3300 hydraulic version and the GR3320 hybrid. And there's also a diesel version, 34 and 3420. And if you look at the 3300, what we found was we were able to get the same, if not better, quality of cut with a rider that you could with a walker. So Toro's always been on the forefront of bringing the correct technology or the wanted technology to market. Whether it be the 648 Pro Core, the 3500 Sidewinder, the 3550, the 3555 fairway mowers, now stepping up to the 3360, 3370. What we did was we made sure we got it right with the traction unit on the 3300, 3320s. Before we took the next step with the electric components, we wanted to make sure everything was proven before we brought it to market. And what's great about this is we built it from the ground up and we had control. We had complete control of what we were going to put on this unit and make sure it was correct. So the cutting units themselves have been around, for a better part of 10 years with the electric reel drive encased inside of a hydraulic hose. So what's nice about that is obviously you're going to reduce your leak points because there's no hydraulics, but it's also going to be 100% watertight. We encase that inside of a hydraulic hose. And then on top of the cutting units, the motor itself is a 3-to-1 gear reduction with the controller on top. There's no belts in here. It's not a direct drive. The nice thing about a 3-to-1 gear reduction is you still have that 3-to-1 torque, so we can run verticuts on ours without any issues. We don't worry about belts that are slipping, and we don't worry about having a direct drive with all that torque being right on the shaft. With a 3-to-1, it also raises it off the turf, so we could do a cleanup pass and not have to worry about scuffing the collars on the outside. So there's a lot of different accessories that we can get for these cutting units. You can get an 8, 11, or 14 blade cutting unit, depending on your height of cut or your application. One of the accessories that I'm going to show here is the brush, the broomer. It's like a groomer, if you will, but as opposed to making contact every 1/8 or 1/4 inch, as you would with a groomer or a verticut, we're actually affecting the whole canopy all the way across the width of cut. By having these brushes, there's more than 420 touch points. Along with that, it's got 3 settings and it's universal. So it can go on the greens mowers, it can go on a walking greens mower, it can go on a fairway mower. It's very easy to set up. And it's got, again, 3 positions. And the first one, as you see, is if I rotate the reel forward, it's in the most aggressive setting where it's forward right now. So what it's doing is, as this turns forward, it's grabbing any of the stragglers and it's standing that up. Now it's stood up before it hits the bed knife and it's trimmed off. There's a middle setting that we can make, and it would be a neutral setting. So if I were to rotate the reel, you can see the broomer is not rotating. The third, which is probably what is going to be used the most, would be the reverse. It's kind of inverse of what you would think. Most people think that if it's reverse, it's gonna be more aggressive, it's gonna stand up. But if you think about the theory of the wheels that are rolling, if there's one in front of the reel, what it's gonna do is it's gonna fan it up just the stragglers and not be aggressive. Stand up, if you have etoliation, for instance, it's gonna stand it up, get to the reel, and just trim off the stragglers. What I would do is I would set this about 20 thousandths above height of cut, find what works for you, and I would run this pretty much 7 days a week, or at least the days of the week that you're gonna mow. Not everybody mows 7 days a week, but it's gonna make much more consistent ball roll. Another electric component that we've added to this, and what we've done is we've taken another gear reduction, 3-to-1. We have brushless motors that are in here, and we have one for the front right and the front left as well. The front left is gonna be the dominant wheel motor. This is what's gonna give you the torque and the drive that you need. Only as needed is when the right is gonna kick in, and you can actually add a 3-wheel drive kit to this, which is just a real drive motor, 3-to-1, that attaches to the rear wheel. And again, it's only used as needed. Raise and lower motors are military grade, fully sealed. So when we raise this thing, we still have that AA arm construction. We're not pulling this thing inside and out and scuffing the turf from side to side. We are raising the cutting unit straight up and down, so we have less stress on the turf, and we can still maintain that walk mower quality with a TriFlex. The rear steering motor is a step motor. What's nice about this is it's also tied into the diagnostics with the key turned off. It has no pressure to the wheel itself. Now let's do a little bit of a deeper dive into the info center of the Greensmaster 3360. So I've mentioned in other videos, I treat this as a warehouse. You know, the info center is gonna be a warehouse, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be able to enter into the different rooms, and as you can see, the cutting unit motors, nothing's going on right now. And if I were to back out of this room, I can see the traction motors, how many amps are feeding the traction motors right now. And then also on the bottom there, it's gonna show you the degrees of what your steering angle is. So if I were to turn the steering wheel, you'll see that that's gonna change. I've brought it back to 0. Now if I were to back out, go to the main menu, and again, walk down the hallway, look for the doors, and you can enter that room at any given point. So faults, there's no faults on this, but it will tell you if something happens in the system. It can help you with the diagnosis. Back out of that room. I'm gonna walk down to the service room. I'm gonna open that door. It's gonna have the hours, the counts. The back lap is turned off right now. Back lap, I can go down to the back lap. I can turn it on. I would back out of that room, and I would be in back lap. You can spin those reels faster or slower in your back lap. You can back out of that room, go back down to service. I can turn the back lap off. Now I'm back at the main hallway, the main screen, diagnostics, can go in, and these are gonna be counts, inputs and outputs, much like an ACE handheld tool, but it's gonna be the next generation. It's gonna step it up, it's gonna give you more information. And you can see for each one, you know, if we were to go to steering, for example, and I were to go to the inputs, and I were to turn the steering wheel, you'll see exactly how many volts are gonna be feeding that certain circuit. Back out of this room. Going into the settings menu is where you're gonna change all of the inputs, your height of cut, your reel speed, and as you'll see, we'll walk down through it. Different languages, obviously. A couple of these you just don't really need to worry about. You can change if you would like. Protected menus. This is where we can put the clip, the height of cut. We can put the maximum mow speed, the maximum transport speed. Many different options that are available. For now, for this, it's turned off. Tap off time, when you're coming off of the green, you can actually just tap the raise and it's gonna turn the reels off. You could drive it off the collar, the reels will be stopped, and you can raise it up the rest of the way. Reel speed, you can see it's all the way down at 1 right now. This is where you're gonna bump it up for lower heights of cut. and bump this all the way up to the fastest speed. Back lap, you can also come into the screen and set your back lap RPM. Clip control is going to be the most unique feature on this unit. You know, this is what I talked about with the debate of, you know, what Toro can or cannot do. You know, clip control, what we talk about is that FOC, your height of cut, and we could debate that in another video, but we would prefer that you, as the customer, you always have the health of your turf top of mind. You know that, and we know that as well. So what we want to do is we want to be careful getting caught in that trap of the FOC debate. You know, you can speed these reels up if you want and get that quote-unquote double cut in a single pass. We would just prefer agronomically that we don't do that, because you may not see the damage now or next week, but what you will see is the middle of the season when the heat kicks up and there's stress to the turf. That's when you're going to see the effects of trying to spin those reels faster than what they should be. You can speed up those reels, slow down your traction unit, get that mower to do any dance you want, but we prefer you not to do that. The true clip control that Toro has is, this is where we're set apart from any of the competition. What we do is, if you're doing a cleanup pass with this unit, think of your reels as being kind of like a posse. So if I'm doing a counterclockwise and I'm going around the green and I'm comfortable with how fast I'm going, I know that the inside reel is going to spin slower than the middle reel and then obviously the outside. We don't want to continue to beat that turf on the inside and promote that TriFlex ring, which is really what people notice, and that's the biggest debate when it comes to triplexes. I just cannot do a cleanup pass. With this unit, you certainly can, and it will reduce that wear. Blade count, you can change this 5 to 8 to 11 to 14. Your HOC, this is kind of where you're going to set that FOC, where what we prefer is you set that height of cut to match what your FOC is going to be. Max mow speeds, we could slow this thing down, we could speed it up, all within the info center. Max transport speed, this thing flies in max transport. If you're not comfortable with your operators being on this when it's driving too fast, let's back that down and we can lock them out. And then another one that's pretty neat is the max reverse speed. So we could speed that up, 3-point turns, but you also want to keep in mind and be cognizant of bunkers, water, whatever the hazards may be behind. Slow and turn. So if I'm going at that maximum speed of 10 miles an hour on transport, if I were to come down a cart path, for example, and I need to avoid hitting an obstacle, if I were to turn really fast, this thing is going to slow down so I'm not going to upset the